Hey YouTube, it's Brian from Texas again. I have an interesting question for everybody. How many handguns do you need to fire each one of these calibers? 9mm on the right, 38 Special to the left of that, 357 Magnum to the left of that, 45 Long Colt to the left of that, 45 ACP, and then 410. The answer is actually only two. And I will show them to you. First is the Smith & Wesson Governor, which you've seen in some of my other videos. I'll do some more close-ups here and talk about the action and the weight and size a little bit more in this video. And the other one is one I just picked up today. It's the Ruger Blackhawk. This is in 38 Special, 357 Magnum, and has an additional cylinder that can fire 9mm. So I just want to talk about the Ruger a little bit. It's my first Ruger. I'm actually a Colt guy. You may have seen in a couple of my other videos the single action army that I have. I love the single action army, and I've been watching videos on YouTube about the Ruger and how well made it is and how reliable it is. So I figured, why not? I'm kind of partial to handguns that can fire different calibers. I have my Glock 22 and 40 caliber, and as you know, you can just switch out the barrel on the 40 caliber to fire 357 SIG. So I like that concept, and I then got the Smith & Wesson Governor. I can fire 3 different rounds out of that. And then I figured, you know what? I don't have a Ruger. Everyone talks about them. I might as well get one. And I saw this model out there. It's the New Blackhawk, I think is what it's called. I don't know as much about Rugers as obviously other people do. Yeah, it's the Ruger 357 Magnum New Model Blackhawk. This is the 6.5-inch barrel. So I picked it up. And I really was interested in understanding the difference in quality and you know, the hammer pull, the trigger pull, how the cylinders work and things like that. You see the videos on YouTube, but they don't seem to do it too much justice. I really wanted to just have one in my hands and shoot one, and I figured I might as well expand the collection. And this one's perfect. With the price of ammo nowadays, 9mm, I have two or three 9mm. So I figured, you know what, 9mm is pretty cheap right now. So, you know, 38 Special, 357 are a little bit more expensive, but if this handgun can fire 9mm, then it's for me, and it's a good idea to test it out. So I'm just going to point out a couple things. First, I'm going to take the ammo off the table. We don't need that here. It was just for example. So I'm going to take away the Governor for now. I'll bring that back. I just wanted to point out a couple things I noticed on this new Blackhawk. The finish is pretty nice. It's all blue. I did notice on the ejector rod area, it's a bit more rough. I don't know if you can really tell here. You can see kind of the metallics marks here. Overall, it's nice. Again, this is about a $500 gun. You can find them for a little bit cheaper than that. So you have to keep that in mind. Obviously, $500 is not you know, a couple pennies. It's still a good amount for a handgun. So I'm not looking for the quality of, you know, a $1,200 to $1,500 Colt single action army, but at the same time, for $500, I am expecting some pretty good quality. And as I understand it, the internals of these Rugers are a lot more reliable than the Colts. So that has to play into it as well. One thing I did notice, I was looking at fit and finish because I've seen some videos on YouTube about Ruger's fit and finish, and some people complaining and other people saying, you know, I've had them for 20 years and I bought them over the last 20 years and they've all been great to me. The one thing I noticed, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but on the back strap it doesn't fit absolutely perfectly with the back of the frame. You can see here, maybe you can see it, there's a little lip here and it's actually kind of sharp. So it doesn't fit exactly, there you go, that's probably an easier way to see it. Doesn't fit exactly flush with the frame. And I've noticed a small little gap here between the frame and the grip. I don't know if this can be corrected. I'm not a Ruger guy, so there may be some people out there that say, oh yeah, it's a piece of cake, just, you know, unscrew the screws back there and press down a little bit and re-screw them in. But I noticed that. The other thing was the ejector rod is a little bit different. Other than that, I haven't noticed anything. This right in here is the 357/38 cylinder, and it looks fine. This has all been cleared, obviously. I'm not pointing this directly at me, even though. The cylinders usually you expect with a brand new gun that they've been test fired at the factory. This shows very little test fire wear. The box does come with a couple fired cartridges, so you know it's been fired to test. But this cylinder looks very, very clean. In comparison, the 9mm cylinder, and this is another thing I noticed, that I haven't found any markings telling me which cylinder is which, 9mm or the 38 357. They're obviously very close in size, so I would have really liked to have seen some markings on the edge of the cylinder to tell me that. I haven't found them, so that could get a little bit confusing. Obviously you can't fit a 38 special round into a 9mm, but I'd just rather have it there because I'm going to bring both cylinders with me to the range. So this cylinder, as I was saying earlier, this cylinder looks extremely dirty. If you can see it there in the light, it looks like it's been put through many, many rounds. Unlike the other cylinder, which is basically clean, this one's really dirty. And at first when I opened it up and looked at it, I thought, did they just take an extra 9mm cylinder that they had laying around the Ruger factory and throw it in my box? I know these are all supposed to be specifically matched to each gun, and they are. You can't, it's very difficult to see, but there's the last 3 digits of the serial number on the cylinder. So it is etched on there, but it just begs the question, why does it look like they fired, you know, 50 rounds out of this thing and barely cleaned up the cylinder face? I found that a little bit strange, although, again, for a $500 revolver that has the kind of reliability that Ruger's known for, I don't really mind it that much. Now, if this was a $1,500 Colt Single Action Army, I would probably have a little more of a problem with it. So, the other thing I noticed on this cylinder, let's see if I can find it, right about here, you can actually see it probably in the light right here. This is actually almost looks like bluing scuff marks almost. Like whenever they blued it, someone scuffed it. So that's not absolutely perfect, but like I said again, it's a $500 revolver that offers the ability to fire 3 different calibers, so I don't mind it too much. I'm using this for fun, for plinking, for just going to the range. It's not meant to be a museum piece or anything, anything super special. So just wanted to point those out in case anybody's considering a Ruger. I've heard amazing things, and you know, I don't know yet. I haven't fired it, so I just wanted to point these things out that I've seen when I first got the gun. Again, I got this probably about 3 hours ago. I literally just bought it. So the other difference here, and I'll compare it with the Colt. This again has been cleared. When you pull the hammer back, you know, it's 2 clicks. It's not the classic 4 clicks of the Colt Single Action Army, but it is a Ruger, so I'm not expecting 4 clicks. The trigger pull is very, very strange. There's a lot of take up. You can see, watch my finger. Right there it broke. All the way back, basically. So there's a lot of travel in the trigger, and then whenever you let it go, it's almost like a double action. It comes back. Almost like a double action. You can't pull it here, so it's obviously a single action, but when the hammer goes back, the trigger comes back, almost like a set trigger. And then whenever you pull the trigger, you're back almost to the very back of the frame, and it comes down, and then there's a couple clicks. That's kind of interesting to me. Here, obviously, if you know Ruger, no half cock here to turn the cylinders. Just open the loading gate, and I'm kind of half and half with that feature. I know it's a safety feature, and that's great. I'm just partial to the old single action armies. The other thing I noticed, and I've seen this in some of the videos, on a Colt, whenever you click, whenever you hear the click, that means that you're ready to load a round. Here, whenever you hear a click with the Ruger, you're halfway between 2 cylinders. You actually have to move it a little further, and it doesn't lock into place. Like a Colt, when you hear the click, you can't really move the cylinder too much without a lot of pressure. Here, I can play around with the cylinder before it clicks again. I'm not sure I really like that. So again, there's the click, and as you can see, it's between 2 cylinders. There's the other click between two, and then to load it, you have so much play here that you really have to get the cylinder right. And that's not so bad whenever you're loading the handgun, but whenever you're unloading and you kind of want to move on, you have to get this cylinder absolutely right for the ejector rod to work. So you can't rely on hearing a click and knowing, okay, well there's a cylinder right there, let me use the ejector rod. You can't do that with a Ruger. It's halfway between two cylinders, so you have to rotate a little more after the click, get it just right, and then you can use it. I don't really like that, but again, it's a Ruger, and I expected that. It's not like I'm surprised, I'm just pointing these things out. So I guess fit and finish is fine for me. Again, this is going to be just a target for fun, plinking type gun. You know, not to me, and I'm probably going to offend Ruger people, but it's not a family heirloom to me. This is actually a gun to play around with at the range, a gun that's reliable. You can handle it how you want to. I handle my guns as if they're all family heirlooms, but at the same time, I'm not really looking at this with the eye of like of what I would with a Colt single action army, looking at every little blemish or possible blemish in the finish and everything like that. So just want to keep that in mind, and I'll take my Colt out here just so you can see what I'm talking about with the cylinder. Obviously the hammers, this has been cleared as well. What I do like about Colts, and obviously this is a totally different design than the Ruger. The internals are all different. The way the hammer works, the way the trigger works is all different. Still a single action, but it's just a completely different gun. So on Colt, the firing pin is obviously right on the hammer, right here. So on Colt, there is no other mechanism in the trigger. When you pull the trigger, and I don't want to dry fire it, when you pull the trigger, it's very crisp. You touch it, the hammer comes down, and there's nothing else that happens with the trigger. It's just sitting there. You can move it, and it doesn't make any noise whenever you let it go like the Ruger does. So let me show you the loading procedure and what I'm talking about with the cylinders. First, with Colt, you can't just open the side gate, obviously. That won't turn the cylinder. You have to go to half cock, which is 2 clicks. Hopefully everybody knows that. There you go. 2 clicks puts the cylinder right in line with the ejector rod, and as you can see, I don't have to touch the cylinder. Ejector rod will eject the cartridges, and I can load cartridges. Now when I click it, perfect. Cylinder's right there. That's as much wiggle room as I have. It stops itself right there. So I can't wiggle this cylinder anymore. It's a lot easier to load, it's a lot easier to eject, I'm guessing. Just to show you again, 1 click, and that's as much cylinder play as you have. Let me bring back the Ruger just so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm sure a lot of people know this, and I'm probably just repeating. On the Ruger, there's a click. And here's how much cylinder play I have before another click. I can almost get to another chamber before it clicks. I've got 1 chamber there, couldn't really load anything in that, and got this chamber here that I have to get just right to load it or eject. So that's one difference, and I don't know why Ruger does that. I'm sure it's just with their safety mechanism that's just the way it works, but I sure do like the precision of the Colt, where put it on half cock, you open the side gate, and it's right there. You can eject, you can load, you don't have to worry about any play in the cylinder. Every click, you can eject and load. Not much play. So that's just the difference with the Colt and the Ruger. Again, this is not apples to apples. I know Ruger is a totally different single action, and it has a different use. And I should be comparing, if I really want to kind of compare these, I think I should probably have a Ruger Vaquero versus the single action Army. But I think the mechanisms in the Vaquero and the Blackhawk are the same. Maybe somebody knows differently. And fit and finish, again, you can see on the Colt, the bluing is really shiny. There really is no flaw in the bluing on this gun. The back strap fits absolutely perfect. There is nothing here. There's nothing here that can catch you. That is smooth as glass between the frame and the butt here. There's no jagged edges, no nothing. Again, it's not apples to apples, but you know, you kind of expect quality at $500 even. Granted, this Colt probably nowadays would retail between $1,200 and $1,500, maybe a little bit less if you could get a good deal. But it's just a difference I noticed, and I'm not really that worried about it. Just want to point it out to other people who may be considering Ruger, that if they're expecting absolute perfection, I don't know if you're going to absolutely get it. I'll probably annoy some Ruger people who will say, like I said before, I've had them for 30 years and never had an issue. So that's just my observation. I can't wait to shoot this. I'm excited to shoot it. It looks like a fun gun. I wanted a little bit longer of a barrel, a little more weight. In terms of weight, this is much heavier than the Colt. There's a lot more steel in this gun. I mean, it's a lot heavier than the Colt in my hands. You know, the Colt's a 5.5-inch barrel. This has another inch on it. And most of the weight isn't up here for me. Most of the weight's all in here, so I'm guessing that the mechanism and the actual steel is a little bit different than Colt. It does feel like a quality gun though. You know, when I pull the hammer back, it locks into place. Cylinder doesn't have any play at all, which is great. Obviously, for a single action or any revolver, you don't want any play in the cylinder whenever you pull the hammer back. When I pull the trigger, it's still no play at all. And I can't wait to shoot it. Seems like it's going to be a fun gun. So let me bring out the Governor real quick. I posted a video earlier, and I had part of my tags were Smith & Wesson Governor, but I never picked it up and showed it. And I've had a couple private messages saying, "Hey, you know, can you give us a close-up look? You had it tagged in the video, but you didn't really show it at all." So I just want to show you here the Smith & Wesson Governor up close. This is one of my favorite revolvers. It's becoming one of my favorites. It doesn't feel heavy to me now, only because I've shot it probably, I don't know, 400 or 500 rounds out of it. I'm using mostly 45 ACP. So it doesn't feel that heavy to me. I remember when I first bought it, it felt like an absolute cannon. Now it's not that bad. Whenever I bought it, this again has been cleared, but when you open these things up, it feels like you're dealing with real quality here. You open it up, you feel the cylinder rotate, feels hefty, feels quality. You close it up, and it snaps into place, and it just feels like it means business, basically. It's got the, I think it's a tritium front sight, night sight, so it glows in the dark at night, which, you know, would be helpful if you had a couple dots back here, because without it all you have is a front glowing green. I guess you can kind of see where you're pointing, but this is kind of meant as a last-ditch close-up gun. I wouldn't use this in the house at any distance greater than 10 to 15 feet, although with the PDX-1 410 shells, I tested that out, and it seemed to penetrate pretty well at about 20 feet or so. Again, the actions on Smith & Wessons, I love Smith & Wessons. In terms of double action revolvers, the action on this is so smooth. It clicks in with authority. Again, there's no play in the cylinder. I mean, there's just almost nothing. And whenever you pull the trigger, it's probably a 1-pound trigger pull. I mean, it's absolutely nothing, and it's crisp break. I barely touched that. Again, Smith & Wesson for safety has gone, I think a long time ago actually, to internal firing pins versus having the firing pin on the hammer. I actually prefer it on the hammer. I'm kind of an old school person. But again, the action on these are so smooth. The hammer is ribbed very well, so you can really get a grip on it. And again, whenever you pull the hammer back, it just locks in place. I mean, it's solid. It's solid as a rock. Again, you open this up, and I mean, it just loads back up with authority. Let me just show you a size comparison here with my 340 PD. If you've seen any of the other videos, this is the 340 PD. I looked up when I bought this. It was actually 2003, around the time when they first came out. This, after I've handled the Governor, weighs literally almost nothing to me. Here's a size comparison of the Governor versus just a J-frame. This is all scandium, and I think the Governor is actually scandium or aluminum, one of the two. So that's the size comparison. I mean, the whole frame of the 340 PD is just about the size of the cylinder. It's tiny in comparison. So I just wanted to show you a close-up here. Obviously, the craftsmanship and quality of the Smith & Wesson is really good. There's some oil here because I was cleaning it the other day, but no flaws at all. Just shoots wonderfully. I'm still going to try to put a video up here of this gun shooting. There's some other on YouTube. like to get a nice close-up. I don't think there's very many 45 ACP or 45 long Colt videos where this is used, so I hope to do that. So just wanted to give you an idea of the new purchase, the Ruger Blackhawk, and my initial impressions being a Colt guy and a single action army guy, what the Rugers really like to hold, what the quality is like. And this was brand new. I actually ordered this gun and went to pick it up from the gun shop about 4 hours ago, and literally just opened up the box and decided to put the video together, show off the Governor a bit, and compare this to an actual Colt single action army. So feel free to like or dislike, comment, yell, scream, whatever you'd like to do. Look forward to your comments.